Yes. Now my Enough is Enough story is actually it's like two combined in one. I'm gonna call it my very first year surviving in Australia. It's just because it is basically, I feel what's going on, I would agree with Kelly, serious times that we live in right now. And with so much going on, it's been almost 2 weeks where I've been thinking of what to put out. Like, you know how people are supporting each other on social media and supporting Black Lives Matter on social media. And I was like, somehow not having the words to come out with because I'm a very emotional person. And I was planning on making a video because I do vlogs and stuff. So I was like, I can't make a funny vlog when there's so much going on in the world right now. So it's been 2 weeks I haven't made a vlog out of respect because I want to respect the people. But also I was planning on making a video of telling everyone how I feel, but I couldn't because I feel like these are very strange times where you do want to support, stop racism, but at the same time, if you speak out something about it, you need to be very, very well versed. You need to have good supporting words, and also you need to have your research done. And if you don't do that properly, there can be so much backlash, and that's what everyone is scared of as well these days. So the people who are supporting it are also scared because if you say something or the other, and if it's something wrong or if it has hit someone on the wrong way, boom, that's just gonna get a lot of backlash. And my story comes up, and this is basically for South Asians supporting the cause Black Lives Matter. Just because I feel like racism and South Asians, we know pretty much how that is because we've kind of dealt with it ourselves. And a lot of South Asians are actually having the backlash of supporting Black Lives Matter because of the fact that, hey, you're a South Asian. What do you have to do with Black lives, really? And I feel like this is my story for them. So enough is enough. My very first year in Australia, surviving 2013. I came 2012, end of 2012, and 2013 was the first year I started doing my job. I actually got a job at a radio station in January, somewhere in Liverpool in New South Wales, and I was pretty much happy with it. Now, I remember, so this was me partying out for the very first time in Sydney, in Parramatta. So my friend invited from radio. He was like, hey, let's go out. We've got a party going on in Parramatta. Why don't you come? And I was like, all right, fine. This is my very first time partying in Australia. I'm excited. So there I am, pretty much, decked up. I'm like, yeah, this is this, my first time in Australia. I'm going to party like it's, I don't know, 1912 or whatever. And I was like super, super excited. Now, the thing is, I'm really bad with directions. And this being my very first time in Australia and going out on my own, I cannot even rely on iPhone. Even if the iPhone says that, hey, turn left, I would be like, which left are we specifically talking about? You know what I mean? So I'm one of those, you actually have to take me literally to directions. So I was literally confused where this Roxy Hotel in Parramatta is. And I think now it's like closed or something. So I was pretty much asking everyone directions, and most of the people were very nice. And I remember specifically, I think that I was 2 streets away from Roxy Hotel, and I asked a bunch of girls, and they were drunk white girls, drunk white Australian girls. So I ended up stopping there, and I was like, hey, can you tell me where the Roxy Hotel is? And these three girls were drunk, and I had no idea how drunk they were, but they seemed slightly drunk. Anyways, so the girl who was the most drunk caught me, and she goes like, okay, so I'll tell you. So first you need to turn left, and then, excuse my language, she tells me to fuck you and get out of my country. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? And I feel like when we talk about all of these things and when it actually happens to you, at that point you're like, it's hard processing it, I feel. And I was like, wait, she just told me to get away, get out of here or something. And I think that I was a bit embarrassed, and the girls started laughing, and they were like, two girls just put her aside, and they go like, oh, she's a bit drunk, she's a bit drunk, and she started yelling, legit, absolute massive yelling. And she goes like, get out of my country, you don't belong here, bloody Indians. And I'm like, I'm not even an Indian, bro. Um, so that was my first time. Anyways, I went to the party. I cheered up because I feel I have this switch on, switch off mode. And I ended up partying on a dance floor like like anything, and pretty much just like, you know, having the fun out of it that, hey, I just got swayed by a drunk white girl. So that was one time. And the second time I remember, it was the same year, actually the same month to be very precise. And I was just going to my radio station, and I remember I was sitting in the train waiting to get off, and along comes this another white girl for some reason. And she comes all, you know, in her sports gear and just comes up. And this time I remember, I think she was a college student or something. And it was like a bunch of girls. And they come to me and all of a sudden start going, oh, there he is, Indian. Go back to India. India, that is where you belong. And I'm like, wait, what? I remember sitting over there. I remember just hearing her. And I remember just like switching her off because that's what we're used to. Not a lot of people know that Christians in minority in Pakistan are actually targeted a lot for racism. So I kind of grew up with this, so I knew how to handle it. So I was just really quiet about it. And then she just left, and it was just like quick 5 seconds or 10 seconds of shame that she gave me. But that was my very first year surviving in Australia. And I feel like it's not just me, it's everyone who's Indian, Pakistani, or comes across as a brown or South Asian, and comes to Australia. And I've heard stories, because the thing about radio presenters is that we can share our real life stories on air, and the people just like catch it and pretty much tell their stories. I remember sharing this story on my radio station, on my radio show, and I got so many people coming up with their stories, and I was like, whoa. So clearly this is a norm. The people, South Asians coming to Australia, need to survive their very first outings in Australia, because in those very first outings, they will actually get called a brownie, or go back to India, or considered an Indian, or pretty much have a racist act come to them some way or the other. And I feel like that is something that needs to stop. So that is why all the South Asians out there, stop telling South Asian people not to stand up for Black Lives Matter, because the idea behind Black Lives Matter is racism, stopping racism. And if we don't stand up for this uprising of racism, I think that no one's going to stand up for us. There are so many stories in Australia, if you check out a lot of Indians and Pakistanis being targeted because of racism, hate crimes, this is what they call it. But I feel like this is the reason why I just wanted to come up with the stories, because I feel like it's important that everyone stands up for this. It's not just about Black lives. Yes, they are in danger right now, and that's why they matter the most at the moment. But at the end of the day, it's an uprising of stopping that racism act. Racism is not acceptable. And that racism should be told enough is enough, because that's basically what we are targeting with all this. So that's my very serious story for all my South Asian people.